and is about to
All
get.
right, so there we go. You are good.
Here's the man.
We look a little different.
Done
That's
double.
Corey, but yes.
You can call me Brett.
Literal big shoes to fill.
Quite large, yes.
Literal. All right.
I hear
so
he's speaking in Spanish today.
hmm Castilian, I guess, technically.
So do we want to look at the local stats, or what's the who? I again assume.
Yeah, I've taken
Norma,
a look at the stats. If I can share my screen, I can pull that up.
Yeah, you should be able to share now, Richard.
Cool. If you can do that, we'll start there, and then maybe the idea is we've got some pretty good articles actually with discussion points around.
Mhm.
A lot of it focuses on the psychology of buyers and sellers and where people are, and supported by whatever, the consumer narrative around the economy and rates.
Yeah, some good stuff this week. All right, is everybody seeing this stats screen?
You got it.
All right, so
Uh,
Broward single family. Here's last 3 weeks in a row we have dropped off dramatically. I actually went back into a program that I run called Trend Graphics. I wanted to confirm what my gut was telling me, and this is a seasonal trend that we see. Our inventory always builds towards June, July. In the second half of the year, we slowly see a drop off in listings coming on the market. This is a whole lot more dramatic than what you normally see, though. So I think you've got a combination of a lot of different things going on. Closed sales picked back up from last week, but not nearly as high as what they were running for July and August. Withdrawns likewise picked up a little bit, but is still running below what we've seen for the last couple of months. Condo market, if that loads.
Should be there.
If that loads, it was there when I took a look at it a couple minutes ago. Rest of this isn't loading. Come on.
It's coming. Just wait.
Okay.
it's loading up from Georgia.
The stats are in the chart if you go up to the 915 on the right-hand side there and just hover over it. No, right there on the middle. I'm sorry.
Middle.
It should be, no, scroll on down. You're good.
See my.
It should be there by now, I would think. I don't know why that would not be loading. Well, let's skip that one.
Okay,
we'll
skip
go back
that one, and there we go. Single family. Nope, condos isn't loading. All right, so my short-term memory, condos has been staying a lot more stable than the single family housing market is. We've not seen the distinct drop off in the number of listings. Let me go back up. Let's take a look at Miami-Dade is trending very much like Broward did. We had a dramatic drop off at the beginning of September, and it's continuing with that. Your active under contracts have dropped off a slight bit in the last week. Pendings last couple of weeks have dropped off dramatically as well. Closing same as last week, and withdrawals, expireds, not much of a change there. Single family homes. There we go, condos. So you can see that the condo market, Miami, has been staying very stable. Not much of a change there, and in any of the categories, it's been staying within a relatively tight range. And in Palm Beach County, we're seeing the same thing that we did in Broward. Single families dropped to about 40% of what they were for July and August. That's the seasonality that goes on in the market here. Pending sales have stayed similar for the month of September. Closings dropped off a good bit last week and this week, but based on the pendings, the under contracts, we should see that pick up again next week. Withdrawals staying relatively stable and the expired listings, that's kind of flattened out during the month. You'll see that pick up, come September 30th. And that's it for stats. I think this week, more important to go over all of the articles that we've seen come out.
Luke, are you able to produce the articles for us or publish? I see them in the chat.
Yeah, those are the PDFs. I can pull them up. I'm not sure which ones you guys are wanting specifically, though.
4 key factors in anxiety. That's a good one. You can also, the Inman Market View.
Hold on.
Which basically just shared that inventory was up over past summer, but I cautiously remind people that, we live in a hyper-local real estate world where macro news, although relevant because consumers hear that, see that, and tend to believe it based on what they read in the media. At the end of the day, everything's really street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, condo community, each one stands alone.
I have Can I ask a question? So in looking at the stats, going back, just one thought crossed my mind. Are canceled usually higher than expired typically, or is that something we're seeing now? Because I think it goes to seller confidence and what the sellers are hearing in their minds that nothing's selling. So I just question that.
It's an interesting question.
Well, weren't there recent articles basically a lot of people that had their houses on the market are canceling or taking their houses off the market because they're not getting the prices that they expected? And with the equity in their houses, there really wasn't a major need to go ahead and sell their house?
Well,
that has to be part of it.
Yeah, and I was asking it just because I think that's something that we need to deal with getting across to people about longer days on market and helping. Like I once had a coach that said our job is to keep our clients hopeful. And so I don't know if we're doing a good job of that, if there's so many canceled.
Well, and there's 2 parts to that equation. One is the psychology of, like you said, confidence is a beautiful thing, that it's not if, it's when you'll succeed. The other half of it is using this data to share that they're in this with, we're in it with the masses. This isn't an isolated you story. No one wants to feel like they're the problem or their unit or their home is the problem.
Right.
And so that kind of lends itself back to validating hope as a purposeful journey. Like at the end of the day, and the other half of it is they sometimes start to play the blame game if things don't go the way they hope they would. And you're the first point of contact for that. So you've got to be armed with, here are the 75 reasons and ways that we're attacking it that's no different than anyone, but better than most or better than everyone, or, your value proposition matters more now than ever, which kind of goes back to that whole skilled-based realtor, mentality.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell
Your own story, basically.
Yeah. Let me give you good news, bad news for that stat, Nadine.
Mm-hmm.
I have our 3 offices down here set up so that broker level has to cancel a listing for our agent. You don't have the authority to go into the MLS, cancel it on your own. I've actually seen very few agents reaching out to myself or to Miko, who can do it for me, to cancel our listings. In some of the other offices that I have that control, it's a little bit different. Where I'm seeing it is when realtors don't have the skill set or the strength to talk to their clients properly right up front, or price the listing properly right up front. And when you're going back to a seller and you're asking for a price reduction, and you're asking for a price reduction, and you're asking for a price reduction, that seller is eventually going to get fed up and say, you know what, I'm taking it off the market. Let's get out of here. And they're breaking that relationship. And it gives you, as a good agent who knows how to talk to them, the ability to prospect the canceleds as well as the expireds and have that conversation and pricing it properly. I think I really, my gut is telling me that's why you're seeing the number of canceled listings that you do. The sellers are just getting fed up with being misled by the other realtors out there.
Yeah, and a lot of listings agents take the hide and hope strategy. They stick it on the market and then they hide and
Yeah.
hope, and they don't have, regular communications that are strategic in nature. And, my advice in tougher markets is to have a strategic conversation already scripted in advance for every single week that you intend to hold the listing. So that every week you're calling with a proactive activity, a measure, a response, some feedback, and, so it's less about you and more about just how do we beat the market, because that feels less alienating, and again it creates maybe an aura of hope, different than just, again, that hope and pray hide strategy that most agents, if you're the second agent and you ask that seller number one reason they switched agents, they're going to 9 out of 10 times it's communication
Mhm.
or some version of inability to
Yep.
fulfill their need, but it's likely communication first.
Dave, you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, if you're a member of our world, you can use List Track and set up. I have it set up with every Monday morning, all of my listings get an automated email saying where people were looking at their listings from, what website, how many people favored it, and I mean, it's just a great way to do it to reinforce that people are looking, but then you can show them a little micro CMA every week saying, and here's what's happened in your neighborhood. And that can reinforce that you might need to adjust your price. You may need to be doing something different, or we are doing what we can. Nothing's happening there right now.
Good feedback and a great tool. Do we want to migrate into some of these articles?
Mhm.
Yes, let's go.
So
Do it.
there's 4 factors that lead to anxiety. If you can pan down, I guess I kind of summarized it. One is overall market uncertainty. Um, to me, this article is really all about the psychology of winning and the psychology of communicating effectively. And for me, I always had the strategy of taking people to what I call safe island. I think this might even be a Floyd Wickman thing. Anybody remember that guy? He was a trainer
Sure.
back before I even became a realtor in the mid 90s. And our job is to help people get from point A to B. And imagine, swimming across a channel with sharks and dangers and perceived dangers, most of which are perceived. What does it look like for them to land that plane safely on Safe Island or rowboat over? And so there's a lot of noise in the air. And so my advice is dig into the pain versus pleasure and help them, circumnavigate towards that pain, away from pain and into pleasure, and that the pain is worth it. Um, Psychological pressures, just again, the perception of making a mistake, in my humble opinion. And that's where we've got to be able to convey a story. And if you can't put them in a story, they're not going to feel it. Um, I believe that, without any emotional attachment, the word motion is in the word emotion. You've got to tap into areas outside of even their brain, because their brain will, your brain plays tricks on you because of input from external forces and the media. And so how do you keep them resonating on a frequency that's kind of above the noise? Um, and fear of failure and fear of loss is a far greater motivator. So that's a factor in that conversation too, to keep in mind. People do crazy things out of fear. Overall economic trends. To me, this part of the story, the way to circumnavigate this as a fear is to look at history. And history tends to not only repeat itself, but it's cyclical. And, asking rhetorical questions makes most sense to me. Um, Questions like, well, in the past, when have you bought, real estate and regretted it? 99% aren't going to give you a firm negative answer. It's typically, well, I really haven't, or most people haven't. The key to winning in real estate isn't necessarily when you buy, it's totally determined by when you sell. And so if you have the capacity and the motivation to hold on, you're going to make out just fine. And history is far longer, historical data for home investing is far greater and longer than your life expectancy. So you're pretty safe inside of that. And again, it's about their story inside of the story, and asking better questions leads to better answers and more clarity on their part. The climate uncertainty piece is what it is.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
So this article, all about the psychology of what's going on in people's heads, what I found is that when we take the lead on this and we start putting out social media pieces, such as many of my clients have said that they're concerned about this, and we create the narrative, that's a great way to take charge and see people as a leader who understands what's going on.
And that's comforting too, Steve. Excellent point.
Yeah.
Did you see anything else in this article of merit? I kind of jumped in and got excited.
No, you got it.
Because this is right up my alley. I mean, if you've survived 2000, I don't know, by show of hands, you're around 2008, 9, 10, 11. This is like where we are today. I won't say it's a dreamboat, but it's not the Titanic. That felt like the Titanic, because every year I'd say the same thing, like Groundhog Year. Yeah, that was last year. This is going to be different. And I mean, it was a sustained, amount of suffering and challenge, and it was all because of traditionally because of defaults and foreclosures, and there was just a flood of bad inventory and
Right.
challenged.
But there was opportunity. I mean,
Well, there was.
It was not doom and gloom. We got people out of houses who were in bad situations.
You're exactly right, Dave. And who among us would now look back and wish they hadn't bought every single house on the market in 10?
Oh yeah.
Like all of them. I want all of them. Not just the choice houses, even the worst. And so,
Yep.
Again, I think success in real estate comes down to when you sell, not necessarily when you buy. And here's the thing too, no one has a crystal ball. So I explain this to people. It's really time on task over time. If we knew the future, we would all just wait till that perfect day. There is no perfect day. But I will tell you, to buy real estate, I get asked, we all get asked this, when's the best time to buy real estate? It's now or any time in the past.
Mm.
And a few people who are savvy and intelligent, would argue that point. I wish my grandparents had bought every house in the planet. It's obviously wishful thinking. It wouldn't happen, but you get the point. All right, next article.
I need to know where you want to go.
Yeah, just pick one.
Hey, Rick, I did put in the chat, I'll put it in there again. It's a script on closing scripts, and one of the articles was all about skills and learning how to close better and role play and practice. So
That's a good one.
Anybody who wants to take that off of here, go ahead and download it.
Steve, that's generous. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
So for me, the secret to closing is asking better questions.
Mhm.
There's a saying there's a book. I don't know if you've read Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. Great book. And in it, there's two things that stood out to me that made a difference in my ability to manage crisis and opportunity and just people in general. One was let the silence do the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
And that's a really good one for someone who likes to talk. And most realtors fall into that category, or we'd picked a different profession, I guess. But the reality is, if you ask a really compelling question and then you talk yourself through the answer instead of letting them weigh in and manage the silence, you really eliminate your ability for them to self-discover truth. And this is the second thing I learned in that book. It's, no one denies their own truth. So if you ask enough strategic questions around the fear attached to making a decision and moving forward, whether it's a price reduction or biting on a home when they're uncertain about market conditions and putting in an offer, if they don't answer their own question, they'll resist you. That's just a human thing. Most people resist pressure or the push or the fear that you might be selling them something. I like this saying too, that no one wants to be sold, but everyone wants to buy. Let that sink
That's a
in.
good one.
So how do you present data and information and emotional construct and good energy that allows them to make a positive decision, that instead of telling them it's time to jump on a particular opportunity, they suggest that it's a good time. And so that's the secret sauce to me closing. And I will say it is powerful to just, ask the question. So it looks to me like you're pretty intrigued and excited by this opportunity. Should we put an offer in? Just surprisingly, more often than not, people, I won't say more often than not, but it's not uncommon that people will take that invitation. I used to do that on my listing presentation. I would wear them out I'd have like the 20-point marketing strategy, and I would literally wear out the first three ad nauseum for 20 minutes. And then I would look up and say something like, I've got 17 more of these that are amazing things that work, that make me different than any other realtor on the planet, in my humble opinion. I can continue to share them in great detail, or we can just sign documents and get busy selling your house. What would be your preference? I kid you not, 95% are like, yeah, we're good. Can we just sign? And it was by design. And I just found that it worked. And I would chuckle and go, you know what? If you have any questions about the other 17, call me anytime. Just know my team's fighting the good fight behind the scenes like nobody else can or will. I mean, people just have to trust you before they have to like you, then they trust you, and then game on. It's a lot of fun. So I don't know if this is helpful, but a lot of this is the psychology of where you sit, and not always just about figuring out their psychology. Like, what kind of energy and conversation are you bringing to the table? All right. Am I the only, is there a designated share the road with the articles, or am I just rolling this?
I'm doing it, Rick. You've just been doing so well. I'm just keeping my mouth shut, but
man, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you, Steve. So we can talk about mortgage rates. You want to dip into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the most exciting things that everybody's been looking for. And again, one of the exercises that we talked about, I can't remember, probably 6 months ago, was if you had a list or columns, and at the top of the columns it said, 7.5, 7.25, 7.0, and it goes down and down and down, and you put the name of every single buyer you had as to who would buy when the rates got to a certain rate, and that was your visual as to when to call them. Now's the time to start going through that database and looking at your leads and saying, okay, let's remind people what they said they would do and where it's at now, and let's get them motivated and create some urgency.
Yeah, you nailed it. What you just illustrated is no one denying their own truth. If they told you 6.5 was a threshold, hold them to that. Go, based on what you're telling me, sounds like now's a great time to rethink where you're going and get aggressive.
Correct.
And sellers are feeling a little bit of panic and uncertainty, and this is the perfect time to capitalize. Is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, and I think the reverse is true too, so that when you have sellers that are panicky or are coming off the market as an expired, or they canceled their listing, if we tell the story, the narrative, like right now, interest rates dropping, what do you think that's going to happen to the buyer pool? Would you like to get in now when they're fresh and hot, or you want to get in later after the really good ones have already purchased?
That's an excellent point. How often do late adopters come out on top? Like never. Like early adopters are always the winner. This is an opportunity to be an early adopter of the new change and shift in the market. That's a cool narrative.
Yep.
All you're really trying to do is compel a real conversation that goes 2 or 3 levels deep so that you can reveal opportunity.
Exactly.
Very cool. All right. Next article. Got anything else on tap?
I need to know which ones you guys want.
We kind of talked about this a little bit. That map is so macro. I don't know if anyone went online and noodled with it, but
no, you can click into it, and it'll take you down into the market, and it'll show you.
So that's interesting.
Spaces. Yeah. And if I go full screen, you can see kind of what's happening there. So this is showing year over year listings and where they're at by these different areas.
Does
By
it segregate by property type? I think it's just holistic.
Up here, it has new listings. It has the ability to change between some different pieces here.
But
This is
not
currently
single
set to
family
change
and
since last year.
not detached versus condo, because that's
No,
based on what I've learned listening in on our calls here in Florida, is that's a real big, there's a big difference in those tale of two markets.
definitely.
Yeah, but this map, as granular as this goes, it takes what we're looking at by county as a whole, and you can see what neighborhoods, what areas within the county are still strong and where it's weak. I'm looking at this particular map, and you go, all right, so what's going on out in Weston and Davie and Southwest Ranches, where listings are still up by 5 to 16%. Yet most of the other Broward County, your listings are down 5 to 16%. So you're really able to go deep with this one and see where the changes are happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great point. It reminds me of a fishing story or fishing truism, if you will. Having moved to Florida, I'm now an angler. It's official. I own a boat and a fishing rod. But here's what they tell you, that 90% are in 10% of the water. And the reason people struggle is you fish in areas where they aren't prevalent. And so when it comes to challenged markets and the micro markets all being different, if where you're fishing isn't producing what you want, you might want to think concentric circles or possibly relocating either your narrative and your the social media feed conversation that you're promoting. Like, why promote an area that's less fruitful? Figure out where the fish are and go fish there. And that's a big global statement. But at the end of the day, there is always opportunity and activity in every market. And I heard this once. This is a great saying, that there are no good or bad markets, just markets.
Yep.
And how do you win right now?
That Weston one listings being up, not to get political, but it's Weston is known as being a heavy Venezuelan population. And I'm wondering if immigration policy is influencing people listing their homes and selling and getting out.
Fascinating question.
Yep.
Could be.
No color.
That's a big global. I bet it's different for everybody. That's part of the problem. And unless you're having isolated one-on-one conversations to know what the real fear is, it's easy to throw a blanket over any common, denominator.
Yeah, I just know that that's what Weston is known for. So I question.
That's an interesting thought.
I still say all those negative drops in active listings and things like that can be a great tool to get listings right now with people who are holding off, because there's less competition for them.
There you go. So the mindset shift of real estate clients don't need us anymore. Just know that looking back at history, when the internet became a thing and everything went online with the Zillows and the Realtor.coms of the world, I remember having a conversation in a mastermind with Gary Keller. And I remember the concern was, now that they have all the data, will they need us? And I'll just share this. With more data comes more confusion. And I think it's a gift that it's readily available, because now they have to process effectively. And the other piece of the equation that we may not have weighed in on as well as we could have, is that humans really need comfort and confidence, and data alone doesn't often do it. They need a human to validate them and to help them, maybe sift through the opportunity as well as the risk. And so are there people that are going to buy houses online? Absolutely. Are the intelligent ones still using local professionals? Absolutely. So again, it comes down to being the best version of your skill-based self.
Now, Rick, I remember that conversation with Gary, like you said, at the beginning of the internet and all our data being turned over and being out there. And if you go back over the national statistics, the percentage of sellers using a realtor has actually gone up by a couple of percentage points. People need someone else to talk to. Like you said, they want the relationship.
Perfectly stated, 100%.
Yep.
All right. Well, it's 9:31. Was there anything left on the article list that was intriguing or worth sharing as a final thought? Richard, Steve, anyone on the call? Questions, thoughts?
Not really. It's just that when there's, I go back to a Diana Kokoska quote, is just that if there's never a lack of leads, there's a lack of lead generation. And when it's a little tougher of a market, it just means we have to do more of the same activities more consistently than anybody else. So I would just challenge everybody that if you don't have enough leads, if you don't have enough pendings or listings, change your environment and get back into the market center and start working from there and have some peer-to-peer support and make your calls together.
That's a perfect closing statement. Thanks, Steve.
Frankie had asked for the social media scripts.
Oh,
We
yeah.
log off of here, and I do have it. I just now found it. I'm
Nice.
throwing it in the chat here, so if we can keep the call alive for
Piece of
30
cake.
seconds here, go ahead and click on it and download.
Yeah, I got you.
Scripts there.
Any final
And
thoughts, Richard?
it'll get emailed out to everybody soon after the call as well.
Those are gold, absolute gold. So thank you, Matt. I think Matt may have conspired that. That's one example where AI technology and information makes life so much easier. It's a tool and a resource.
The heat map statistic is the Inman link a little bit further up in the chat. It says interactive map. They are all right there in the chat.
All right. Richard, final thought?
You guys are the best in the business. Just be out there every day doing what you do best. Talking buyers, sellers. As an old coach used to say, it's about being nose to nose, toes to toes, belly to belly with as many people as you can be, and you will win at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation between the number of quality conversations you have and the opportunity you reap and reward yourself with. Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome
Thanks,
day,
Rick.
guys.
Thanks,
Enjoyed
Richard.
it.
Bye,
See ya.
y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks so much.
Best.
Have an amazing week.
You too.